Flaubert imagined Alexandria as a meeting ground of Egypt, Greece, and Rome.
The city was vibrant, chaotic, alive with diverse peoples and cultures.
Alexandria became a hub of cultural and religious contention.
Followers of Mani, Valentinus, Basilides, and Arius debated openly in the streets.
Jews resisted Roman taxes, as political unrest boiled under imperial rule.
Flaubert romanticized Egypt through an orientalizing lens. Despite exaggerations, his narrative conveyed the city's atmosphere. His vision emphasized the mythic and historical richness of Alexandria. He captured both the attraction and the danger of its religious life. Alexandria's ferment set the stage for the rise of Gnosticism. Flaubert gave heretics life, not distant names, but voices echoing through Alexandria's streets.
His romantic excess fades before the authenticity of atmosphere he conveyed.
This study widens the idea of Hellenistic syncretism, more than simple mixing. Gnostic myths of dualism drew on Egyptian theology of emanations. Long before Rome, Egyptian cosmology carried dualist insights.
Scholars once opposed Oriental syncretism to Occidental system.
Yet this contrast is outdated. Hellenistic religion shows unity, not mere mixture.
Egyptian cosmology offered continuity for the birth of Gnostic cosmogony.
Hellenistic thought in Egypt developed older models, rather than inventing anew.
Egypt joined the wider world in contemplating fate trant, Hemarmene. In proto-Gnostic Egypt, the underworld teemed with demonic forces that haunted every vision of life. A magical papyrus revealed the Ouroboros talon, the world-encircling serpent of time. The papyrus warned of death, grief, illness, poverty, and fear. These fears reflected the deep anxieties of Hellenistic society. Religion answered with new cosmogonies, seeking to outwit evil itself. At Thebes, priests still served the gods through magical rites. They rebuilt Egyptian traditions by restoring ancient temple texts. Ironically, Ptolemaic decrees funded the rebuilding of temples. But outside the temples, popular religion obsessed over fate and looming evil. Out of oppression, Egyptians reshaped older theology into dualism. Its popularity showed how deeply people feared evil and suffering.
Egyptian priests, stripped of power under Rome, turned to Mani's teachings.
Mani's creed absorbed Egyptian elements, reinforcing its dualism. Behind the Egyptian Gnostic stood the Egyptian priest.
Egyptian motifs permeated Gnostic texts.
Early Gnosis was priestly, conservative, rooted in ritual. Later Gnosis grew radical, speculative, outward-looking. Cleopatra briefly embodied Greek-Egyptian synthesis until Rome's conquest.
Roman domination deepened the sense of evil and dislocation, reshaping myth into Gnostic dualism.
Hellenistic Gnosis drew deeply from Egyptian theogonic models. It embraced heterodoxy, weaving together diverse religious traditions.
Its participants were Jews not fully Jewish, Greeks not fully Greek, Egyptians not pure.
Greco-Egyptians embodied hybrid identities.
Gnosis became revolutionary, daring to challenge authority and orthodoxy.
Patristic writers condemned its subversive nature.
Gnostics rejected temporal and historical authority as archontic.
Jonas defined Gnosticism as radical dualism, dividing self from world.
This dualism fostered alienation from nature, a cosmic nihilism.
This study finds not just antecedents, but direct continuity between Egypt and Gnostic thought.
From 100 BCE to 400 CE, Egypt hosted dualist groups, Gnostics, Hermeticists.
They shared the world of the magical papyri, filled with dualist cosmologies. This study follows dualism from Old Kingdom origins through late antiquity.
Part 2 explores emanationist and dualist thought across centuries.
Part 3 examines Gnostic thought thematically through Egyptian categories.
Egyptian influence shaped Greek philosophers like Plutarch and Plotinus, and Gnostics like Basilides and Valentinus.
Nameless. Plotinus was raised in Egypt. Plutarch held sympathy for Egyptian wisdom.
Valentinus and Basilides, Egyptians by birth, were trained in Greek learning.
Defining what was Greek or Egyptian in Roman Egypt is never simple. The thesis is clear. Gnosticism bore a strong Egyptian presence, born of cultural, social, and linguistic overlap. The very idea of Gnosticism as a fixed ism is a scholarly construct. Early research framed Gnostic origins in Greek, Persian, Jewish, or Christian terms.
Egypt's role has too often been underestimated, despite strong evidence. Many Gnostic texts are distinctly Egyptian in language and style.
Alexandria stood as the intellectual hub where these traditions converged. Gnosticism belongs within Egypt's own socio-historical context. Yet scholars often ignored Egyptians' contribution, seeking origins elsewhere.
In Alexandria, Greek and Egyptian categories blurred into one.
A socio-historical approach recenters Egypt as essential to Gnostic development. Scholarship often undervalues the philosophical essence of Gnostic thought.
Bias favors orthodoxy over heresy, system over syncretism.
Gnostic irreverence echoed Alexandrian skepticism and sophistic traditions. They connected with eclectic thinkers like Potamon and skeptics like Arius Didymus. From Empedocles to Numenius, Greek dualists overlapped with Gnostic thought.
Artosanes. Gnosticism belongs in Egypt, not only geographically, but spiritually.
Centuries of foreign rule and revolt shaped Egypt's dualist worldview.
It is false to assume the Nag Hammadi texts are only Greek redactions.
In a bilingual, multilingual culture, Coptic emerged as the Gnostic tongue.
Athens. To ignore Egypt is to misread the socio-historical reality of Gnosticism.
To assume the Nag Hammadi texts were purely Greek is to erase non-Greek Egyptians. Dualist worldviews were deeply embedded in the Egyptian psyche. Gnosticism must be seen as Egyptian as much as Hellenistic. To see it only as a Greek mutation is historically unfounded. Coptic likely served as an original language of Gnostic texts.
Coptic gave an Egyptian voice to myth-making, not mere translations.
In Alexandria, Gnosis fused Egyptian and Greek traditions.
Egypt's mentality itself favored the rise of Gnosticism.
Yet few scholars directly address Egypt's role in Gnosticism. This study argues Egypt was central to Gnosticism, not peripheral. Most scholarship sidelines Egypt, focusing instead on Christian origins. Egyptian influences on Gnosticism remain underexplored.
Only a handful of Egyptologists trace these connections.
Yet A. Barb and C.J. Bleecker affirmed Egypt's importance.
The Nag Hammadi corpus shows strong continuity with Egyptian ideas. Late Egyptian religion connected closely with Gnostic Coptic thought.
The socio-political backdrop of Egypt is crucial to understanding Gnosis.
Many avoid Egypt's role due to academic boundaries. The limited work of Egyptologists reveals the gap in Gnostic studies. This thesis fills that omission by centering Egypt at the heart of Gnosticism. A Gnostic text with Christological themes is not automatically Christian Gnostic. Nor do Jewish names alone make a text Jewish Gnostic. The scholarly debate over whether Gnosticism or Christianity came first is misguided. Many Nag Hammadi texts are not primarily Christian at all. Egyptian theological elements often outweigh the Christian ones. Some Gnostic priests may have been former Egyptian priests.
Even as Gnosticism spread, Egyptian cults remained active.
Gnostic thought carried continuity from temple culture.
Ancient Egyptian theology strongly shaped Gnostic cosmologies.
Yet the field resists acknowledging this continuity. Two problems hinder understanding Gnosticism: neglect of its philosophy and neglect of Egypt's centrality.
Gnostic suspicion and irreverence grew from Alexandrian culture.
Skepticism, euhemerism, and sophistic traditions shaped the Gnostic mood.
Gnostic dualism overlapped with Greek Middle Platonism.
The movement must be historically grounded in Egypt. Egypt endured centuries of oppression, feeding dualist speculation.
Scholars still deny Coptic as a language of Gnostic composition. In truth, Gnostic texts reflect Egypt's bilingual and multilingual world.
Even many Greeks in Alexandria were Egyptianized.
Gnosticism arose from Egypt's dualist mood, not merely Greek influence. In Egypt, Gnostics embodied a profound transformation of worldview. This shift grew from the Egyptian psyche itself, not only Greek thought.
The insistence on Greek exclusivity is historically misguided.
Coptic likely served as an original medium for Gnostic myth.
Many Egyptian Gnostic texts were un-Greek and non-Christian in essence.
Alexandrian Gnosis assimilated diverse cultural elements.
Egypt's bilingual environment fostered this synthesis.
Modern scholarship still downplays Egypt's role. Yet some Egyptologists, like A. Barb, affirm Gnostic flourishing in Egypt. Ignoring Egypt leaves Gnostic studies in a socio-historical void.
Most Gnostic studies focus narrowly on Christian influences.
But Gnostic roots in Egypt predate Christianity.
Middle Platonic and Hermetic systems carried Egyptian dualist content.
Manichaeism opposed Christianity, but aligned with Egyptian dualism.
In patristic and Gnostic sources, Jesus often stands at the margins.
Sophia, Norea, and other female figures dominate many texts.
At times, the Christ figure was absorbed into Egyptian motifs.
In many systems, Jesus was secondary or even superfluous.
This proves Gnosticism was not simply a Christian offshoot.
Egypt's influence outweighs Christianity's in many Gnostic texts.
Many Gnostic texts were wholly non-Christian, like On the Origin of the World, Eugnostos, and the Apocalypse of Adam. Some works held only marginal Christian glosses, Books of Jew, Pistis Sophia, Hypostasis of the Archons. Others bore more Christian elements, like the Apocryphon of John and Sophia of Jesus Christ. A few were fully Christocentric: the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Philip, Gospel of Mary. Yet most of the major Gnostic texts were not Christocentric. In many texts, Jesus appears as a supporting player, not a central savior.
Sophia and other feminine figures often overshadow him.
Gnosticism absorbed Christian symbols, but was not defined by them. Yet scholarship still overemphasizes Christian Gnostic texts. Egypt's roots remain more foundational in the non-Christian Gnostic works. Gnostic studies often favor Christian-influenced texts over non-Christian ones. A few texts dominate discussion, marginalizing the rest. Patristic accounts describe Gnostics, like Valentinus and Basilides, teaching in Egypt.
Though late, the Nag Hammadi find preserves older material.
Only a quarter of the texts are clearly Christocentric.
Many contain only superficial Christian glosses.
For the Ophites, Jesus was unnecessary to their system. In the trimorphic Protonoia and Gospel of the Egyptians, Sophia puts on Jesus.
In Pistis Sophia, Jesus is less developed than Mary.
Christian elements were often secondary additions to pre-Christian frameworks. Christian influence on Gnosticism was only one among many, never dominant. Persian and Jewish ideas were equally influential.
In Egypt, early Christianity was fragmented and sectarian.
No unified Christian orthodoxy existed in the 1st and 2nd centuries.
Charismatic dualist teachers journeyed to Egypt, shaping its spiritual climate.
It is likely Gnostic thought influenced Christianity, not the reverse.
Emanationist systems of gnosis long predated Christianity.
Christianity had little presence in Egypt until the 3rd and 4th centuries.
Jesus was absorbed into Gnostic frameworks, not central to them.
Debating Christian origins distorts the true Egyptian roots of Gnosis.
This study avoids the trap of defining Gnostic origins.
The very term Gnosticism misleads, turning fluidity into an ism.
There was no Gnostic orthodoxy, canon, or central authority.
Gnosis embodied a spirit of revolt against tradition. The ism itself is a modern scholarly invention. Gnostic temperament arose from a dualist mood, not doctrine. Egypt's long oppression and foreign rule shaped this dualist mood.
Socio-historical analysis is essential for understanding Gnosis. Scholars often avoid this context, treating texts abstractly.
This thesis links Gnostic dualism directly to Egypt's social history.
Gnostic dualism arose in response to harsh Roman rule in Egypt. Under Roman domination, Ma'at seemed absent from the world.
Dualism emerged as despair over fate and injustice.
Gnostics sought to overthrow history itself, not merely reform it.
They rejected political, ecclesial, and social claims to authority.
Roman prefects were imagined as demonic archons.
Gnostic thought was literary and philosophical, not narrowly sectarian.
It can be seen as a literary phenomenon of Egypt itself.
The Gnostic mood anticipated later existential critiques, like Nietzsche's.
Alexandria's pluralist environment nurtured this development.
This study applies modern literary critical theory to Gnostic texts.
It deconstructs Orientalist assumptions, echoing Edward Said.
Foucault's idea of the author function critiques how Gnosis is framed. Gnostic dualisms parallel polarities in language, as de Man observed.
Rejecting history, Gnostics anticipated modern phenomenology.
Gramsci's hegemony reveals hidden political and sexual forces in the texts.
Steiner's translation theory explains Gnostic adaptation across cultures.
Bataille's concern with radical evil resonates with Gnostic cosmologies.
This study bridges ancient Egyptian gnosis with modern critical theory.
The study traces emanationist thought from Egyptian theologies, Memphite, Hermopolitan, and Heliopolitan. These early Egyptian systems shaped Hellenistic Gnosticism. Emanationism stretched between dualism and monism.
At one pole stood Stoic monism.
At the other extreme was Manichaean dualism. Hermeticism, the Chaldean oracles, and Middle Platonists leaned toward dualism.
Neoplatonism defined itself in opposition as anti-dualist.
Gnostic means sect, agnostic a tendency, agnosis a doctrine, and gnosis an experience.
The chapter ends by defining dualism as the common thrust of emanationist systems.